Welcome to NFL Daily, where sometimes we get stuck inside of pitching cages. I'm Gregg Rosenthal from my house, but Jourdan Rodrigue is at the Rams facility, and yeah, she's literally taping this inside of a pitching cage, and her laptop is set up on what they would call a hit pad, I guess, that the players run into. So thank you for playing hurt today, Jourdan.
Yeah, the scent of sweat is just oozing upward from the hit pads today. You know, football is back.
It is very back, and yeah, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see the setup that Jourdan has. A beautiful picture. So yeah, today's show a little different. I was at Chargers camp earlier, and we're gonna listen to some conversations I had and some thoughts at Chargers camp later. But we're gonna start the show with just a little bit of news, and then Jourdan and I decided to talk about some teams that haven't been talked enough about on this show. So we're going to try to get to a lot of stuff, and that's why I'm not going to mess around with the chit-chat, Jourdan. I apologize. Let's do some news. Just a couple items here on Monday before we get to those teams we haven't talked about enough. We've talked plenty about the Texans, and they learned today that their defensive tackle that they signed in the offseason, Denico Autry, suspended for 6 games for violating the PED policy at the NFL. And it's a shame. Really good player, 34 years old, and most importantly, a key member of that defensive line who I think was going to play a ton of snaps for them.
59 sacks in his last 10 seasons, 11 and a half in 2023 in Tennessee. He was kind of one of those guys who you could tell was going to have a key role here. So yeah, you hate to see that. First time he can come back is October 20th against Green Bay.
This is one of those suspensions, though, and this happens later in guys' career, that I always think you're going to get a great version of him when he comes back. So it's a shame at a position where, yeah, they signed Foley Fatukasi, they have Tim Settle, Mario Edwards. They're thin there. But a 34-year-old getting the first 6 games of the season off isn't the worst thing. And yeah, he's one of those, if you know ball, you know Denico Autry. He's been a great player. And he used to be on the Colts, and now the Colts unfortunately got some bad news. They lost Samson Ebukam for the season. He tore his Achilles. I hate that we're always leading the show with news like this, but it's the biggest news this time of year. Really good pass rusher. You saw him when he was with the Rams, Jourdan, and that's a big loss for the Colts.
Yeah, he was used in the change-up package in LA and then into San Francisco. He really blossomed when he was up with the 49ers. He's a great dude, a great player. They're really, I know I join you, Greg, in being really excited to see what this Colts front line is going to do this year. Obviously, that's a huge loss, and Laiatu Latu is going to probably get a little bit more juice, needs more pop early on without somebody like Samson who could mix it up for them in terms of that speed ball, that speed rush, combined with some of the power they already have.
I love Laiatu Latu coming out of the draft. He was the first defensive player taken, right? Which is wild, and I thought he deserved it to be, and it was a surprise that it happened that way. Yeah, we haven't talked a ton about the Colts defense, at least, and the defensive line, I thought, had an argument for the deepest in the NFL. Not as good on the top end as the Cowboys, certainly, but Kwity Paye, Adingbo, who's coming off a nice season, Laiatu Latu, and now you lose Ebukam, who's coming off a career year, 10 tackles for loss, 9.5 sacks, was top 15 PFF edge player, which that's wild, but top 30 in win rate, really solid. They have another guy, Tyquan Lewis, so I guess the positive spin is that was a position they could afford to lose someone, but you hate to see it. And that defense, to me, has a chance, their front, to be really exciting, make Gus Bradley look great there and be a playoff team. Finally, we wrap up the news. Taylor Decker signed a new contract with the Lions. I think it was $31.8 million guaranteed, 3 for $60. Seems like a bargain. And again, they're investing in the trenches.
Yeah, $20 million a year for your guard, one of your top players on the offensive line. And I think I say guard because I'm looking at this list of their top 5 top paid players on this team. Jared Goff obviously is number 1. Decker is number 2, and a little bit of a higher number 2 at this point. So kicking out, starting on the outside, and then coming in. Frank Ragnow is also, he's number 3. Aiden Hutchinson, sneaky number 4 there, but that's that rookie deal kind of popping in there. And then Penei Sewell, who they took care of earlier this season. What I love about this Lions team and how they're built, among many things, is they're telling you who the F they are. I mean, they're going to run the ball at you. They're going to run play action. They're going to have a couple of really great skill players and a quarterback who can get the ball to them. And they're going to be physically dominant up front. And so now what they will do, because they have so much money tied up, rightfully so, when you look at the caliber of these offensive linemen and skill players as well, and Amon-Ra St. Brown, now what they're going to do is walk that tightrope of finding and identifying supplemental players in the middle to later rounds of the draft that will stay cheap for them for long enough to maximize this contention window. So this is going to be fun. I think I love this for the Lions because they, like I said, they're showing you exactly who the F they are with all these signings.
It reminds me a little bit of the Eagles, who are thought of as one of the most analytically minded teams, and they are. And I think what the numbers say is invest in the players who weigh the most, and they've always paid their linemen a ton on both sides of the ball, and it's worked out for them. It's going to work out for the Lions. Shout out to Bob Quinn, the general manager of the Lions in 2016. I was rudely Googling that as you were talking. So he's the one who drafted Taylor Decker back in the day. And it's always a reminder, tackle more than any position in the NFL. Just be patient, because at first people really weren't that into Taylor Decker, and he's had a really good career. And I think that's smart what you said about the Lions. The Lions could almost fit into this segment. Weirdly, I don't think we've talked a lot about the Lions this year, because it's like, oh, they're all back. And now, I think they have the best team in the NFL. If you had to make a team full of guys signed through 2027 or 28, they have the most great guys now signed through 27 or 28. But we haven't talked a lot about just this team. But I guess before we jump in, you got any Lions pop? You just can't stop smiling today,
I'm
Jourdan.
so happy. I'm at football.
You are at the facility. It gave me some juice, I got to say, and we'll get to the Chargers later, to be on a football field, to hear Jim Harbaugh yelling at his players. Yes, it did give me a beautiful football is back feeling. What do you got for the Lions for me?
Okay, I do have one more thing for the Lions for you, because again, I love how this team is built. I love how they've gone about really identifying young players who can complement stars that they now have shown us they clearly intended to pay. That's, like I said, that's a tightrope walk, and you want everyone to stay healthy, and hitting on those supplementary players, your stars. You expect your stars who you did sign. I think most of them in this case can do this. Lift up those supplementary players in order to really have a cohesive product. So it's you want the guys you pay to raise the floor of everybody else and help the young guys develop. And you want that floor to get higher and higher because everybody's developing, because of the stars that you do pay, pending everybody stays healthy. I will say, I heard a scout one time say this to me, and I will never forget it. It makes sense, and also it doesn't, which is the scouting way. Let's see, it says, investing dollars into pounds makes sense.
Oh, there we go.
Right? I'm like, wow, you really thought you had something there.
A little corny, little football-y, but this is a league where every team has to have a slogan. I forget whose slogan it is this year. It's resilience. And it's okay, that's not a slogan.
Oh,
resilience.
I got to tell you, I'm out here at Rams. I know you'll be out here in a couple days, Greg. You guys successfully and beautifully shamed Sean McVay into shortening the language on his T-shirts. We'll get to that a little bit later this week. But that was some of the funniest stuff ever last year, and you guys really carried it in a great way. So I'm happy to report on the ground.
It's good to know. I'm looking forward to the new slogans, but yeah, they needed an editor in the worst way. I think one of my one quick thing on the Lions is really on the defense. The defensive line, that's where I have questions. I actually am really confident in what they did in the secondary and bringing, Brian Branch is playing nickel, by the way. I mean, last year he played nickel. This year he looks like a full-time safety, which is different. It kind of was under the radar.
At safety, they can move him around.
Yeah, but I don't even think, from the sound of it, I don't think they're going to move him too much. They're going to get him on the field even more and have him play safety, and I'm sure he'll be in the slot sometimes. But they're trying to fill that position separately, and they feel like they have the depth now to do it, now that they brought in Carlton Davis. I think Emmanuel Mosley might be their slot corner. Terrion Arnold is there as the other starter, and so I'm excited about that. The one thing I'd be worried about is the defensive line. Marcus Davenport and DJ Reader are two really important players for them, and then Levi Onwuzurike, who is starting right now for them in practice. Those three players, to me, have very high ceilings and very low floors in terms of talent and mostly just availability for all three. Reader's coming off a thigh, another torn quad, rather. Davenport's never on the field. Onwuzurike's had injuries. And so those are three guys they're counting on. They've invested a lot in the defensive line, and it hasn't always paid off that well, except for Hutchinson. So if you're looking for, something to just watch in camp, it's those guys and their health, because Davenport and Reader especially are coming off injuries. All right, let's get into our segment, though. I want to talk
pick a card.
Teams. Oh, you have 4 cards. They're beautiful NFL Daily note cards. I do love that logo. Like, I'm very self-critical, and there are many things with the launch of this show that I want to just get better and better at.
Same, including my rambling.
Yeah.
Which is why we have the cards. But
the cards I'm happy with. The cards and the logo, I'm really into. Yeah, my son said Walker's like, oh, you're getting cooked on the 5-star, 1-stars on iTunes. And I was like, oh, really? He's like, yeah, some of them aren't happy. So if you're listening to this show, it means you do like it. Give me some 5 stars and some reviews. It does help with the ratings. I would appreciate that. I know people, understandably, we're not happy with the transition, but we're trying to make it work for you. And so, yeah, I was like, Walker, don't tell me that, and put in a 5-star review. Thank you.
Greg's in his head. Don't get Gregg in his head. We need him loose. We need him loose and cooking.
No, I was like, okay, that's the way I find out. You throw out the card you think is the most interesting, or pick the second one from the left if you really want me to.
The second one from the left.
Just pick the one you like the best. Come on, Jourdan.
Second from the left? Well, I don't like this one the best, just to be clear.
No, pick the one you like the best. This is entertainment. No one would know. Just pick it.
Yeah, second card from the left. No.
Yeah, here we go.
I'm starting with the Jets.
Okay, wow.
I do think...
The Jets being a not talked about team is...
You know what? We haven't really talked
right.
about the Jets very much. And I think some people... It's because I think rightfully so, after the fiasco that was last year for this team, one injury away from complete catastrophe, I do think that's part of the reason. It's like, once bitten, twice shy kind of a thing with this team and some of the buzz. I mean, I've heard other people say this. I'm not saying anything new. This is a Super Bowl team. If Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, this is a Super Bowl contending team. I firmly believe that. They have one of the best defenses in the league. If Aaron Rodgers even looks like 89%, 87%, 85, 80% of Aaron Rodgers of yore, I really do think that this team has some special in them. That's where I'll start, because I know you have thoughts on this.
Okay. We have talked a little bit about Rodgers, but I've tried to stay away from it. But you're right in terms of looking at the depth chart and really breaking into what team they're going to be, haven't as much. Here's one thing I'd push back on slightly. They need their offensive line to stay healthy. And I guess if I had a question about the team, any position group, it might actually be their defensive line, because Hassan Reddick's not there right now, and I'm not assuming that that's going to all work out. And even if it does, okay, Quinnen Williams is there, but you're counting on Jermaine Johnson to maybe make a big leap, Will McDonald to make an even bigger leap. Javon Kinlaw was a little bit of a disappointment in San Francisco. Those guys all have big roles. So when I look at the defense, you're saying best defense in the league.
I look at their
linebackers as good as any team in the league, their linebackers, and the secondary as good as any. Defensive line, there is a bad case scenario there. What do you think?
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. However, as you'll note in bullet point number 3, I came ready. I'm juiced. It's football, man. I got this. Okay, so I do agree with you in that that's a concern. I don't think they're necessarily quite. They have to get this Hassan Reddick deal done. They just have to. I mean, you cannot, not only for logistical reasons and production reasons, but it's flat out embarrassing. If you trade for the guy and he's not showing up to camp, and I mean, you have to make this happen. He could be very productive along this front. Quinnen Williams is one of my favorite players to watch in the NFL. He's just a destructive force of nature, and just a delightful human as well, like just a wonderful guy. And so I really appreciate the juxtaposition, the duality of man, if you will, on that front. But I also think that we've watched since 2018, Robert Saleh, yes, he's often been defined by the personality of his fronts, but particularly over the last couple of years with the Jets, even though the front is 100% should be and has been the heartbeat of this team in so many ways, you actually watch some of the coverages that he's leaned on. He's one of the few people, in fact, maybe the only one who has successfully and consistently taken that old Seattle system and married it with some of these new quarters concepts that we're seeing. Robert Saleh plays the most quarters, or the second most quarters, of any coach in the league. And for the listener at home, quarters, popularized heavily by the modern iterations of Vic Fangio's system, it basically builds a box over the defense. And it often looks like man coverage. It can be man coverage, but it can also be a match zone, which gets really sticky over the various layers that receivers are building with their routes. And so when you can play like this with bona fide dudes in your secondary, to the side now, DJ Reed, Sauce Gardner, Michael Carter, they all are allowing completion percentages of under 60% according to Pro Football Focus. That is also while playing one of the most difficult and aggressive coverages you possibly can. I say all this to say, yes, the pass rush does help with that, but I do say all this to say, can we start talking about how the secondary, the defensive backfield, is becoming a core identity of this Robert Saleh defense, of this Jets defense, to the point where you can even start thinking about some of those older Fangio concepts, and he didn't start them, but they were sort of defined by coverage dictates front in some ways. And I remember that very, very well when I first started learning this defense back in 2020. And I think that is something to watch, especially when you do have bona fide stars at every key cornerback, defensive back position on this Jets defense. And I think, like I said, I think they're going to be badass.
You convinced me. That is maybe the best cornerback trio in the league. I think because of the continuity and the intelligence, and that Sauce Gardner can go to another level, which is scary. Like a lot of teams, I think if you take out, some of these starters, they're a little thinner. But when I look at the Jets, and that's the only holes that you can poke, like whenever I'm doing that, that's with Super Bowl contenders, where it's like, well, they are one injury away from pretty questionable cornerbacks, but like, if that's the best you can do, there's safeties this year. Tony Adams, who has been there, was a undrafted free agent, I believe, who's played well for them. And then you got Chuck Clark or Ashton Davis. That's one spot, but they're so good at hiding guys. And yeah, the linebackers, Mosley and Quincy Williams was a pickup. They're great. I mean, Saleh has to get his flowers at the very top of the NFL of defensive minds because he's just done it. Like, he's just made it happen. And so that's why it always made sense to me, actually, to keep him going into this year despite all the turmoil. All right, let's move on to another team.
Are you picking?
Haven't talked a lot of Commanders. I'm going to just throw it out. We'll go Commanders. Okay. I'm worried about this team. Again, line play, both sides of the ball. But I want to start positive, and I want to think, like, what's the route here to being interesting and better than people expect. It's obviously Jaden Daniels starting quickly, and he might, more than Caleb Williams and Drake May, be positioned to start quickly just because of his age, frankly, and just the different systems he's been in and everything you hear about him and everything you're already reading at Washington. He's very mature, I think, as a young man and as a football mind. And so you combine that, we'll see how Cliff adjusts to that, but it's someone that might be able to hit the ground running, and we can get into what else is there on offense, but that has a real deal wide receiver one. So that's a nice start. I mentioned it on our fantasy show that I did with Pat Daugherty, like the fact McLaurin's going like something insane, like 30th out of receivers, like this is finally going to be the McLaurin year because he doesn't have much competition and the situation's better. Like it would not surprise me if Terry McLaurin rips off a 1,600-yard season one of these years, and I think this might be that season.
Yeah, he just does not slow down. He does not get worse. He is a joy to watch play. Some of the catches he makes defy the laws of physics, quite frankly, and we're on the scene here, so I'm enjoying this Mack truck backing up behind me, so excuse me for that.
You're good. You're good.
Everyone wave at our first responders. Hi, first responders. Okay, so how about that emergency action plan, right? Okay, so what I kind of like about this, so I'm a big believer in Jayden Daniels. I'm an Arizona State graduate, very depressed since we lost him, and enjoyed watching him thrive and play in college football. I'm a big time Jayden Daniels fan, but I also think that when you're getting someone ready to take the reins, I'm kind of in the camp of have someone else there who's experienced, who could kind of like I kind of brought up in the I Can Fix Him episode, like having somebody who can install proof of concept without the quarterback feeling rushed. Now, I'm not saying that Marcus Mariota is that guy who
He's
can
still
really
taking first team reps, by the way,
Right.
which is one of the more surprising aspects of training camp. I don't think that's going to last long.
Yeah,
Mariota,
I don't think that'll last either, but I do like the fact that you're not necessarily thrown into it. If you are a quarterback who, I think Jayden Daniels is going to be an outstanding pro, but I do think that there are maybe some durability questions with his frame, some play style questions of, the contact that he is able to take on. And I just think you want to make sure you're being careful with all of those things, especially right out of the gate. So getting him an on-ramp, I think that's what Marcus Mariota is for him, is the on-ramp. And I like that.
And does that on-ramp mean sitting a regular season game? I don't know.
I think if you're really run heavy to start, and we'll see, because like you, I don't believe that this whole first team reps thing for Mariota, I don't think it lasts. I mean, Jayden is too electric of a player to be behind long. All I'm saying, because we've got the entire month of August here, Greg, like all I'm saying is a nice little on-ramp into your first professional season. You see more and more franchises, more and more organizations trying to walk that perfect balance between play the guy you believe in, play the guy you drafted this high, and also make sure he's not just like jumping in a frozen lake at the very beginning. We've seen this franchise ruin quarterbacks. We've seen a lot of franchises ruin quarterbacks.
It's a new day, it's a new owner,
I know, and that's
a new
what I'm
coaching
saying.
staff.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. I think they're trying to walk this line of make sure he's getting all of the steps in, make sure he's truly feeling comfortable with all of these things, and his body is where it needs to be. Just do it the right way. And I think all of us want that for Jayden Daniels. We'd love to see him right out of the gate, the starter, in week one. And I think he's got the weapons to do it. They'll probably have a pretty solid run game. I'm worried about this offensive line, as it seems to be the trend here.
Let me mention the offensive line, because at practice this week, really the only consistent starters are Tyler Biadasz from Dallas. He was fine in Dallas. Not like a plus starter, but they trust him. And then Sam Cosmi at right guard. And after that, it's like injuries and rotating guys. And Cornelius Lucas is either left or right tackles. And you could say it's early in camp. We're trying to find the right five, but the names there aren't inspiring. Andrew Wiley, who was with the Chiefs, it's not inspiring. And all the teams that are saying that are the teams with no talent. So, you can say, we're trying to find the right five. That's worrisome. The positive spin, before we move on from the Commanders, would be Jahan Dotson has a step to go up, I still think. And so that's a good one, too, I think. And then the back seven on defense with Dan Quinn is going to be interesting. Bobby Wagner and Frankie Louvu, two really smart players who you can do some things with. And the secondary has a lot of guys. And give Dan Quinn a lot of guys, I think, that have a chance to be a little underrated. Benjamin St-Juste is solid. Mike Sandersville still is one of my favorite players in the draft, a slot corner. Emmanuel Forbes put on 15 pounds this offseason, and yet he's still like 175. I mean, he is the skinniest cornerback in the league. But Michael Davis, Jeremy Chin's there, Derek Forrest. I'm just saying a lot of names, but they are names I think are capable. And Dan Quinn showed in Dallas he is good at getting guys all on the same page right away. So I think they can get more out of the secondary. I think there could be a good wide receiver combination. This is not going to be a playoff team, but they could be more fun.
Two very quick things I want to point out before we move on is a bunch of these players in the secondary, either from other teams or are smart, are versatile, and they hit really damn hard. Frankie Louvu and Jeremy Chin, watch out, because they're going to take your head off. And I think that this is old school vintage Dan Quinn, right? Guys in a defensive backfield that can hit the brakes off a car, right? And I think that this is going to be really interesting to watch. I love Frankie Louvu's game. I think he's an outstanding player. Pairing him with Bobby Wagner, you'll notice that most of these position groups, barring the offensive line that we talked about and barring some other areas, they've really paired a core culture guy. They have a lot more work to do, this Commanders franchise, than just the product that they put on the field. You see Austin Eckler, you see Bobby Wagner, Marcus Mariota, guys, culture guys, core guys who can help Dan Quinn and Adam Peters build what they want. And Adam Peters just went about gutting the entire front office. He made hires in the analytics department and also in his front office personnel from the Lions, the 49ers, and the Ravens. And all I have on my notes for that is the word good.
Yes.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good hiring.
I think it's a little overlooked how much of a gutting happened here. Everyone is new on the roster, in the organization. I know Daron Payne and Jonathan Allen, that is a great defensive tackle combination that is there, but other than that, Ron Rivera, who's going to be working with us at NFL Network, he announced on Monday. I heard he's asking about how he can get on a podcast. So maybe we'll. I know you know him from your days in Carolina.
For a long
maybe
time.
We'll have to try to have him on. His team is kind of gone, and this is starting from scratch. And so there's just a lot to do there. A lot to do in this segment still, Jourdan. Teams we haven't talked about enough. And you know what's going to be sad is you have multiple note cards here, and it's like, I think we only got time for one more team.
Okay, I'm gonna make you pick.
It stinks to be the team that isn't talked about enough, that isn't gonna be talked about in the teams that aren't talked enough segment. If that made any sense.
I love it. It's so meta. Wait, I'm gonna make you pick because I've got two
you
here.
pick. You pick.
No, I'm holding the cards, Greg. Pick a card.
Which is more interesting?
They're both very interesting.
Just pick the Bucks for a specific. I have a specific reason.
Let it be known, Raiders fans, this was Greg's choice. I wanted to talk about
you. You know why? We're going to be at Raiders camp next week, and we can spend some good quality time with the Raiders.
Yeah, when you see Greg, boo that man. He didn't want to talk about you today.
Yo, shout out to Sean, the man at Chargers camp who said he was listening to NFL Daily on the way up, said he knew I was going to be there, and then kind of a little weird, but maybe a little weird. Said he sort of staked out. He saw me going to the porta potty area, and I think waited outside for me to come back out and say hi and say he was a fan. So that actually is. I know I'm looking. People are listening to the show, but that's the first confirmed fan of NFL.
That's so
Daily.
nice. Oh, Sean!
Nice.
Shout out to Sean, and I hope Greg washed his hands there for you, Sean.
Of course I did. It's a tough scene, those porta potties. Let's do the Bucks. Give me your best stuff on the Bucks.
Chris Godwin in the slot, I think, is going to be overall some of the best stuff on the Bucks. I also loved, you guys mentioned it a little bit in Monday morning's episode of NFL Daily, which I listened to.
Don't say that. That means we talked about him on Monday.
But you only talked about it like a very small amount, because I really do love this receiving core. I think people forget that Liam Cohen is the offensive coordinator over there. Liam Cohen worked a lot in the early stages of Cooper Kupp when he was doing a lot more stuff out of the specific slot role before he moved into this like hybrid slot F player who did a lot. He's always done a lot in the blocking game and all that. I think he really wants to see if they can unlock Chris Godwin. It's very, very rare to ever have a season in 2021 like Cooper Kupp had, but it has been brought up a few times as sort of an aspiration, a goal to at least have some of that style of production, a do-it-all player. Chris Godwin is like quietly second in this franchise in receiving yards, and Mike Evans obviously with 10 consecutive 1,000-yard seasons is still there. And I really liked, as you know, I got to see a lot of the scouting process this year, Greg. Everybody liked Jalen McMillan. Everybody really liked him. And I think all of these players, they give Baker Mayfield just this diversity of target. They can do a lot of things. Mike Evans is obviously like your ex guy, but like the other two, like they can go do a lot of different things. And Chris Godwin, I still have faith. I know the injury a couple years ago, and people wondered if he could come back from that, but I have always admired his game. I love this position change for him. And as the Baker-sance continues, I do think that Liam Cohen, who, by the way...
I mean, I don't know if it'll continue. I don't know if he's put two good years together in a row, so that worries me. But he's set up for it. This Bucks team, I hear Bucks fans out there that feel like they don't get talked about, they don't get the respect. They were in the divisional round last year. There's always one team like the Giants a couple years ago that, they make the divisional round and just no one thinks they're going to get back. And Bucks fans will be like, yeah, but we've won the division 3 straight times. But okay, let's tour with Tom Brady and he's not there. And the other one last year, you tied. You tied at 9-8 and you won the tiebreaker and it was great. And you were entertaining to watch by the end of the year. And you made the Lions sweat a little bit in that game. I think, are they the favorites in the division? I don't have a strong...
Falcons are close, I think.
I don't have a strong feeling, but I think they're closer to being the favorites or are the favorites than what the desert says. At best, I think the Falcons are kind of even with them. Here's where I would worry. Just the pass rush. They haven't had Randy Gregory show up to camp. He's one where I don't necessarily expect him to play for the Bucs. And so you have Yaya Diaby as a second-year player who got a lot of cleanup sacks. You have a rookie Braswell. You have Joe Tryon. Not a lot of pass rush. The good thing is the strength of that defense. Kancey and Vita Vea next to each other. Could they have career years together at the same time? Because if that happens, the whole rest of the defense takes care of itself. They're playing James Daniels week 1, by the way. Todd Bowles versus a rookie quarterback. It's possible if those two guys play their best seasons at the same time together, that alone, with reasonable play otherwise, which they'll have, and a great coach, that's enough to be dangerous because those two are crazy. And I was really interested when Kancey said he looks at Cameron Jordan as a player he wants to model himself after, which that surprised me, but they are relatively similar body types. And I was like, okay, so you got those two guys. And I think the offensive line has a chance to be really good quietly. They've drafted well on the offensive line. And so if you have a good offensive line, you have those two guys, they got a chance. I believe in you, Bucs.
They got to get Tristan Wirfs figured out. They got to get this
But he's
situation.
there. He's at camp.
He's there. There's no reason to believe that it doesn't get worked through. Being there, being present, and then they seem to have come. Bucs reporters Greg Allman does a great job over for Fox Sports. There's sort of this chatter that they've figured out some sort of happy medium of what he will participate in. Again, someone like of Wirfs' caliber, I'm not exactly super worried if they miss the first.
They already said, their GM Jason Light said, he will be the highest paid tackle in the league. So when that happens, it's like, what are we talking about? That means they've already offered him a contract that makes him the highest paid tackle in the league. It's the same thing with Jefferson. When I heard that, I was like, okay, this is over.
It'll be fine. Yeah,
it will happen. Raiders fans, be upset.
Dollars into pounds makes sense. Greg.
No, that's... You got to learn from Dwayne Wade, who had his pronouns are he and him, which I liked the first time.
I loved it, yeah.
But then he went back to it 4 times. So you got to
But that's not mine.
You got to sprinkle in your catchphrase, but
it's not mine. I'm citing a source on this one. It's not mine.
But you used it. It's yours now. Jordan, get to practice. Get out of the pitching cage, and I'm making you work overtime this week because you will be with us on Friday's show. So I am looking forward to that. We'll have some content from Rams camp, but we'll talk about other stuff. And after the break, I'm really excited for you guys to hear a little bit more about the Los Angeles Chargers this season. And Jim Harbaugh, King Charger. Bye, Jordan.
Bye.
It was another really good day. Just a great day for football. Whether pads or no pads, I look at how much time do I have today. Today practice gets to be an hour and 45 minutes, and that's what I look forward to. It's an hour and 45 minutes of pure joy for me. I mean, the distractions of the modern world cease. I have no cell phones to answer. I just to get to go out there, sun shining, cool breeze coming in off of the ocean, and get to interact with the players, the coaches, all of us who have a love and passion for the game of football. So it's just a gift, and then the excitement, the work, the challenge, all energy, all goes into making it a better day today than yesterday. So tomorrow I get 2 hours of that pure joy where I don't have to be inside. I get to be out.
The pure joy of training camp. They put the pads on Monday with the Chargers for the first time. I was at Chargers training camp, and we're going to hear from Hayden Hurst, their tight end. I talked to him for a couple minutes. It was very nice to lend his time. Then you'll hear a longer interview with J.K. Dobbins, who I really enjoyed, and then we'll wrap up the show with Matt Money Smith, our friend. But just a few takeaways before we get to that from the day at Chargers camp. That pure joy that Harbaugh is talking about, you could see it. He's a king. He's the king of the Chargers, and this was his kingdom. The Bolt is this new training facility that they set up. It's beautiful. And I got to admit, it's hard to imagine Brandon Staley presiding over this. It's like he wouldn't be worthy of it. It's a really nice setup. I give the Chargers credit. The weight room's outside. It's very cool because it's near the ocean. As Harbaugh mentioned, it's 70 degrees. They have a great setup in the building where they have the meeting rooms. And then right outside the meeting rooms, there's these big patios where they can actually do the walkthroughs there, so they don't even have to go downstairs. And you just saw Harbaugh soaking it up. That joy was obvious. He's so in the mix in these practices where he's breaking it up. He's talking to them. He's running some plays. And then afterwards, he's spending all these times like having deep conversations with fans, like really engaging with them. And you just see a guy who is enjoying life. I'm fascinated to see how this goes. But it is a totally different vibe around this Chargers team. A couple things just from practice. Number one, J.K. Dobbins, who will be on the show, was the first team running back, got a ton of reps. There's no Gus Edwards out there. He looks really explosive coming off a torn Achilles, which was suffered early last season. Much better than I would expect. I think he's going to have a big role on this team. Quentin Johnson caught the first 2 catches of 11 on 11s. He's in some lineups where it's just 2 wide receivers on the field. He's going to be a part of this offense. Maybe he's rotated in with DJ Chark and the 2 tight ends and obviously Josh Palmer, but they're trying to get something out of Quentin Johnson. The defense dominated the day, for the most part. Justin Herbert, I think, was frustrated. A lot of pass rush, a lot of hands on the ball, a couple near interceptions. They have a deep pass rush with the Chargers. Like Chris Rumpf, I was noticing, was their 5th rusher. He's a good player to be their 5th rusher, so a lot of pressure on Justin Herbert. Rashawn Slater was out there, but just for a couple snaps in team drills. And yeah, it's a part of the offseason where the defense, at least for today, was dominating. Finally, it's a unique setup where the LA Metro train is going by multiple times, like every 10 minutes across this practice field. It's a very unique setup. I put it on my Instagram, this ghost train. Other teams could put their spies out there to see what's going on at Chargers camp, but it was a cool setup, and I'm looking forward to you hearing these interviews and everything I talked about with Matt Money Smith. And it's going to be different for NFL Daily. We're going to hit the Rams. We're going to hit the Raiders. I know you'll feel like it's a West Coast bias. I am going to hit all 32 teams with a deep dive. And so we'll have a board. We'll keep track of it. These are just the teams I can get to. They're not putting me on a plane, so it is good to get out to see some football. I was feeling that joy today. I hope that comes through. Here are my interviews with Hayden Hurst and J.K. Dobbins and then Matt Money Smith. What's the different vibes between the Harbaugh coaches?
Very similar philosophies. They're all about working hard, earning everything that you get, which I think that's football to its core. So, I love it and I respect it.
I mean, they feel about as football to its core as it gets. Like, are most head coach? I've been to a lot of training camp practices, and Jim Harbaugh seems like he is in the mix about as much as any head coach is going to be in the mix. I almost was a little worried for him, like that he's going to get taken down on some of the back pedals. And
no, he hops in the drills. He's got the cleats on. He's over there flipping sleds with us. Harbs doesn't mess around, man.
That's awesome. You were signed here by Joe Hortiz, rather. You mentioned the GM of the Chargers. I noticed they brought you and Will Dissly in around the same time, and there's questions about like what is this offense going to be? The wide receiver group is somewhat uncertain, and I thought they were telegraphing a little bit when they brought in you 2 guys at the same time that they'll probably be playing a lot of 12 personnel with 2 tight ends on the field. You've obviously done that before.
Right.
Like, does that get you going? What kind of advantages do you think it is to have 2 tight ends on the field?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. Obviously, it's a tight end centric offense. I've been in it before. With me, Nick, Mark, Max, Darren Waller. We all did it in Baltimore, so I'm very familiar with how this thing kind of functions. It'll be cool to do it with Justin. Cool to do it with Will. Just kind of changing it up a little bit. Obviously, different skill sets. That we all bring to the table, but same philosophy. We run it early and often, and see what we got after that.
What's Justin been like? You've been around some great quarterbacks, obviously. Really, now that I think of it, it's like you've been with 3 of the top quarterbacks in the entire league, and Lamar and Joe Burrow and Herbert. Like, what's unique about Herbo out of that group?
I mean, just by looking at him, his stature, he's very impressive. It looks like he could be in our room as well. He's like 6'6", big dude. Live arm, and he can put it anywhere on the field. Just his personality is great. It's kind of infectious to be around a guy like that who just loves the game. Very easygoing, fun-loving kind of guy. Just wants to be one of the boys. So, it's fun to be with a guy like that.
We don't get a lot of Herbert personality talk, although I did see him. He celebrated a one touchdown you guys had there today. I hadn't seen a lot of that. Like, what is he like?
He's just one of the guys. I think the tight ends, offensive line, they're just most normal, I guess you could say, position-wise, just regular guys. And I think Justin loves just being one of the guys. I don't know if he necessarily loves being Justin Herbert all the time and getting all the attention. I think he likes to go under the radar and just kind of hang out with the boys.
So then that begs the question, like, what's the most abnormal position group then on the team? If you had to rank them top 3.
Wide receivers and DBs.
Okay.
They kind of like, they love the Instagram posts, stuff like that, which is cool. They get the touchdowns and the picks and all the cool stuff, so we'll let those guys have it.
Well, looking forward to seeing you get some touchdowns, obviously be blocking, a lot of running for this Chargers team. I'm excited to see what they do. Thank you, Hayden Hurst.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me.
All right, we are here with J.K. Dobbins, a man I am excited to talk about. He was excited to walk over here. I've already heard from around the building here. You're just like, you got the best personality. You got the most energy of like anyone in that running back room. Now you got no answer for that.
Well, I mean, I think that's the truth.
Yeah?
I think it's the truth.
Is that like – I'm fascinated by running backs because seeing you and Gus together, to see the two different types of body types that can both excel, though. And speaking as a very small man myself, much, much smaller than you, like is that – because you're like a shorter guy, you got to make them hear you, Is that a Napoleon thing?
Nah. I make them feel me. I make everyone feel me first, you know what I'm saying? Yeah, I might be shorter, but I think I'm a little bit of power to me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But, the looks are nice to have, too. You could be a big, tall guy, but I like the way I look, too.
Absolutely. I'm no, like, you could look like me, and then you'd be in trouble. You went out there today in pads the first time. Like, how'd that feel for you coming off, the injury that you had last year? Another step to put the pads on and get to real football today.
It's a blessing, the injury I had in the first game was pretty. It was for lack of better words, weird because it was just a regular tackle. I don't know why it gave out. It didn't hurt or none of that, but it was the Lord's plan. It was the plan of Jesus to give me that so I can get here to where I feel amazing. I feel so good. Like with pads on, I feel like I'm in college shape. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know. Maybe the Achilles injury was to make my legs stronger, make my feet quicker, and make me more fresh, so I can go have this huge year that I know I'm going to have this year.
Ooh, I like it. Talk to me about the huge year, because you're out there with the first team. To my eye, looking explosive, getting a lot of reps. Obviously, there with Justin. Like, are you ahead of where you expected to be, and just how you're feeling? Tell me about that huge year.
I'm right where I thought I was going to be. I put in the work. I knew when I had the Achilles, I wasn't down about it. I told some people in the locker room for the Ravens, was like, I'm built for this. Like, this is nothing. This will be like an ankle sprain. I'll be back like that, which I was. I was sprinting at 5 months. Some people say it's unheard of. I don't know. I don't care, because I'm gonna get this work in, and I know where I need to be, and that's where I'm going. I'm going higher than what I was, And so it's been great, and I'm just gonna keep working, keep getting better, and keep feeling better as well.
Right, and you obviously landed with a team that's got some big boys on the offensive line, especially at tackle, that has the two tight ends out there. You got a big smile on your face. It's going to run the ball. So it should be a running back's paradise. Like, you looking forward to that?
Oh, yeah, I'm looking forward to see how we gel together. We just got to keep building our chemistry. Me and the O-line, we got to see everything together. Like, I can't have different eyes than Zion or whoever's at tackle. I can't have different eyes than Bradley Bozeman or whoever's at center, or different eyes than Slater. We all got to gel together and have this great chemistry, so we can run that thing.
So we had back when you were coming out as a prospect, we have a guy that used to come on our old show around the NFL. His name's Spice Rack, and he was so big on you coming out of college, and he said you just got to watch J.K. Dobbins, because he reminds me of a young Emmitt Smith. And I said, oh, you don't hear that comparison too often. And so ever since he put that in my head, I watch you, And I do kind of see that in terms of the vision and being in sync. You mentioned with your offensive lineman, which Emmett was so good at. Like, do you have guys that you look at a little bit to model you, and what do you think about that Emmett call?
I think that's a good call. You know, we're both shorter guys. So when I was at Ohio State, I used to see Emmett. You know, he used to be on the sidelines, and he's a great guy. Love him. You know, so whenever I hear that comparison, because I've heard that comparison a lot. You know, it gives me a reason to be motivated because I know him and I know he's a great guy and I know he's number one all time on the rushing yards, right?
Right.
Correct. So I want to be like that. I want to be number one. Like right now, yes, I've had unfortunate injuries. Right now, no one knows. No, people know a little bit because they saw a little bit from what I've put out there, but I truly believe that I can be legendary.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, and you put up the numbers when you've been out there, 6 yards per carry, 5.7 yards per carry. Like when you've been out there, for the time we got left, I want to kind of hear through your eyes what you see. I want to first ask you before the snap. What are you looking for as a running back before the snap?
Well, I don't want to tell everything, but first I'm gonna look at the D line. Gotta see what kind of front they're in. You know, so I can know where to anticipate the play going. You know, and then I'm looking at the safeties to watch what kind of blitzes they might bring if we're in pass protection. You know, so and then after that, it's just my killer instinct comes in, and I'm like, all right, nobody's tackling me. If I get the ball, no one's tackling me. Let's take it to the house.
And what kind of keys are you doing after? Because that's why I like watching you run. You seem to somehow slow down the game a little bit. My favorite running back of all time is Frank Gore, who to me had this way of seeing things ahead of time and getting small through holes. And I think you got a little bit of that in you. And I want to know, like, what is it after the snap that you're seeing?
Well, like him, I'm slowing the game down. But that starts with the pre-snap. You know, I'm slowing if I see what I see on the defense, that slows it down. When I get the ball, it's slow. I'm taking my time. I'm a pretty fast guy, so I know I can restart faster than most defensive players. So, and I appreciate you for giving me these guys are the legendary that you're throwing out.
I'm telling you were on our list. You know, I don't want to get into the fantasy football of it all, but I brought you up as someone to watch definitely this year. I'll wrap with the last quarterback you played with, Lamar Jackson. Now you're playing with Justin Herbert. I know Justin Herbert's not Lamar, but you were front row to see like one of the greatest running quarterbacks of all time. Maybe compare just their running styles a little bit and what you've seen out of Justin as a runner, because he can move for a big guy.
Man, you know, Lamar, he's my brother, man. I still talk to him to today. You know, I love him. That's my brother. He knows that, you know, nobody can run like Lamar in the league right now. But my man Justin, he's my brother as well. I love him as well. He's got more athleticism than people know. You know, he can run. I saw that in college too. I remember one time, I think it was like a Rose Bowl or something. He like took it to the house. Was like, that guy can run. I didn't know he can run. You know, so a little different. Lamar's a lot different, you know, with his moves and stuff. But they both got athleticism, and Justin can do it all.
Okay, you said big year. I'll let you go on this. Like, you throwing any numbers out there? You got any goals in mind?
I'll let you put your numbers out. I'll let
Okay.
everyone put their numbers out,
Okay.
and I bet I'll beat those numbers that y'all put out.
Okay. I'm thinking like 1,200, 1,300 yards from scrimmage, something like that, because they want to share the ball a little bit. Gus is going to get his work too.
Yep.
But you're looking, you can still beat that, you're saying.
Yes.
Okay. I love it. J.K. Dobbins, you heard it, one of my favorite running backs in the league. We'll be back after this with our friend Matt Money Smith. Welcoming into the show, one of my favorite people, one of the funniest people I know.
Oh, that's 2 lies you've told. Let's make it 3. What else? Good looking?
One of the best storytellers. If you're at a dinner with Matt Money Smith and Dave Damashek, know that you will not get any words in edgewise,
Yeah.
but you will be laughing the whole time. Matt Money Smith, it's been a while.
Yeah, it's great to see you, Greg. It's good to see you out here at Charger Camp. It's exciting, right?
It is impressive here that it's like just started. Like they did it right. Taken a few years to get it going, but I can't wait to get my son out here. The whole thing is impressive at the Bolt. The team, it's exciting. You're coming out. You're really scouting. I feel bad for taking your time while old Herbert
All good.
is out there. But
Let's hear about Herbert first. Like, what do you see so far this year? You were at the OTAs, you were at mini camps. Like, how do you think he fits with this offense?
Well, today's we're doing this first day of padded practice, so it's kind of hard, to really kind of get any official football analysis in there. But what I've seen, bouncing his step, I think he's beyond happy to have Shane Day back. It was kind of weird that he was pushed away in the first place. Those two had a real special bond, and all the success he had, early in his career. So I think, that kind of, I think, opened the door, but for a heck of a relationship between his head coach when he's like, look, before I hire a quarterback coach, who do you want? And let's see if we can get him. And now Shane is back. So I think that helps. And I think it's important for people to remember, people like you who do the quarterback index and the rankings and all those sort of things, that this is a guy that has not had the easiest path. His best year, in my opinion, was his first year because he had Shane Steichen calling plays. And you saw the magic that happened and how he utilized his skill set to maximize, what Justin Herbert can do out there. So I'm very excited for him to partner with not just Gregg Roman, but Jim Harbaugh. I think it's going to be a real special relationship for him.
Yeah, one thing, even just seeing the start of this practice, like Harbaugh is in the middle of everything. He's stopping the whole practice down to talk to everyone. The way they've built this team, though, getting rid of the big names at wide receiver, you got a rookie in McConkey. You have Quentin Johnson. I noticed that the first two catches there in teamwork here. Like, how do you think that receiver situation works out? And then they brought in the tight ends. We're going to have Hayden Hurst on in a bit. Like, how does this all look?
I like it. I know people will say I'm biased, because I work for the Chargers, but I think it's a really good collection for what Herbert does. I don't know what the top three will be. I don't know how often they're going to be in 11. They're probably going to be in a lot more 12. And just kind of watching, one of the more interesting numbers to keep an eye on is 71 McFadden, who was drafted as a tackle, guard, center work, and now he is doing a lot of the Patrick Ricard stuff out there. So I think you're going to see, I don't know what the receiver rotation is going to look like. One thing I can tell you, though, is Ladd McConkey's a problem. He is slippery, and you are seeing dudes get their ankles broken every single day out there. The route running prowess that was celebrated as someone who was like a 10-year vet, that I don't think that was overselling him. That is certainly what his skill is, and that's a skill that Herbert loves.
It's a lot to ask for a rookie to be a 1, but they don't really need it to be a 1. They need him to be 1. But in terms of snaps, yeah, if I had to guess who gets the most snaps, it's probably him.
Yeah, I mean, Josh Palmer, if he's healthy, he's like, to me, he's wildly underrated. Anytime he had to step in for Mike Williams or Keenan Allen when they were hurt, he'd come up with a 100-yard game. If you look through his game logs, you'll see, he got the targets, and there his problem is he just has struggle with health. So if he stays healthy, I think he's unequivocal number 1. And I kind of like the way it's built, right? So Chark, DJ Chark is your outside X, and I think that allows McConkey, who we saw line up, you were standing next to me, a little bit on the outside for some of the early 11-on-11s. I think you can be flexible with he and Josh, and they can both really shine in either of those spots.
You've been around just talking with the coaches and watching the practice, just like who surprised you, I guess? Like who are some players on this team that you're into?
Yeah, so one, we were discussing before we walked over the sheer size of Joe Alt. You get it. It's like, oh yeah, I get this. This makes sense. This is someone that is larger than, NFL players are larger than most humans, and this is a guy who's larger than most NFL players.
It's humbling. I mean, you had, what did you say, that if this was
4,000 years ago, you and I would have some serious problems.
Right, we'd be dead. And yes. I appreciate you throwing yourself into the same mix as me, but it's humbling, but it is nice to be around these monstrous men. Defensively, like, I don't know. Like, this is such a mystery box to me of, like, what this team is going to look like, how they're going to line up, and how these guys that they almost surprisingly to me came back, Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, fit in with everyone else here.
So I think the edge group's going to be great. I think, obviously, I'm never going to project for bad health, so I'm assuming everyone's going to stay healthy, as crazy as that may sound. But if you have that rotation, Thule and Bud Dupree are starting edges on a lot of teams in the NFL. So to have that 4 and to try to keep them fresh the way Coach Minter, I think, wants to rotate them, that's great. Secondary is kind of where we have our question marks, and you might have a little battle at that nickel corner with Jaw Taylor and the rookie Tarheeb Still, who really kind of has flashed a little bit. They need to find that second safety so they can really unlock Derwin. Aloe's solid, underrated because he's not really that flashy athlete, but just a very cerebral, smart player. So I think if they can find that second safety, unlock Derwin, and And then beyond that, Greg, I think it's going to be the linebackers. You know, if Junior Colson is what we think he can be as a rookie, you know, he had appendicitis, so he's not been practicing. But if there's one player I want to keep, you know, Derwin, Joey, I'll just push that stuff aside. If there's one player I'd watch, 0, Deion Henley. I think that's your prototypical 2024 NFL linebacker with how fast and how athletic and also how strong he is.
I fascinated by that because, like, to me, you look at the teams that struggled in the playoffs, it's because their linebacker play stunk. This Chargers team got hurt by linebacker play. This is a team that I've been overly excited about.
Yes, you have year after year.
Last I took 1 year off, which was 2022, which it would have been fine. It was fine to take off.
Yeah.
Now I'm not saying they're under the radar or anything, but you've been here as a part of this move up to Los Angeles. Give me more just the high view of, like, Jim Harbaugh arrives here. Like, how does it feel? You are part of the organization. Ultimately, you're the play-by-play guy for the Chargers. And can they finally make dopes like me who think they're going to be great? Because now that I'm around it and I just see the uniform and this place is cool and Herbert is still Herbert, now I'm kind of back in. I'm like, why not this team right now? It's Jim freaking Harbaugh.
That's what you just said it. I think that's exactly what it is. They needed someone to walk through that door that says, I'm a winner. All right, you guys are very talented, but let's win, and that's what I do everywhere I go. So I think that's exactly what they needed. It feels like they're responding to that in terms of, you know, this. So you'll see it today. After practice, they do what they call fourth quarter OT period. And you're talking about guys that are out here in the sun practicing for 2 hours. Today's full pads. Ben Herbert's going to put them through bear crawls on their fingers and toes. They're going to flip sleds. They're going to drag they're going to flip the sleds here. They're going to drag those sleds over there. And it's like another 20 minutes, and they're all jacked and geeked to do it because they believe it's kind of what, you know, coaches is sort of preached, that everybody's good. And these things typically come down to the end of half and the end of games. Got to be able to outlast your opponent, and that's what that's all about. And they seem they want it, you know. I mean, Herbert wants it. Derwin wants it. These leaders of this team, there's a reason why Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack took pay cuts, because they want it here, and I think they're really buying in, and they believe what he's kind of pushing here.
Yeah, when I heard Bosa, who is a man of few words, kind of just mumble out, you know, like, well, when he says it, we know it's gonna it matters. Like he's done it before, so if he says it, there's no doubting. And I'm immediately thinking, well, there probably was some doubting, but we don't need to talk trash on who wasn't there before. You're not on your fingers and toes, but I'm guessing you did some like surfing this morning.
I did surf this morning. I had to squeeze in a quick session because I had to get up here
like
early.
Some hot dad content, check out Matt Money Smith's Instagram. Like, sometimes he's got the shirt off.
See, I said it was
not to shame.
You said I was funny. You said I don't remember what the other one was, that I was
good storyteller.
Yeah, good storyteller, and now I get the good looking guy. All lies.
I'm not saying good looking, but the body.
I got you.
Yeah, for your age. I'm not gonna go
for my age.
Far.
There we go.
Making
I appreciate
me feel
yes, because
bad.
I am weird looking in the face. I absolutely accept that.
Matt Money Smith.
Yes, loved it, Greg.
Thank you so much. That's gonna be it for today's show. We will be back on Wednesday with Will Brinson. Looking forward to that show, picking our guys for the 2024 season.